Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. And as usual, it is my honor that our guest has chosen us, first of all, to spend their precious time. Second, to come and trust us with their journey, their all their pain and their triumph, so that you and I can become I would say, a better human spirit while we're here on this planet occupying this space called Earth. And it is with my all deepest heartfelt acceptance that I welcome Victoria here at Threads of Enlightenment. Thank you so much for coming to us. Victoria, how are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for this opportunity, Ken.
Thank you. Tell the people about all of the fun things that you are doing currently in your life.
I am so blessed to be working with amazing special needs families that are so full of life and so full of laughter. I advocate for these families. I help them realize the resources that are out there that they're not even aware of. I spotlight these gorgeous individuals and make them just interview their families, find out what they love to do, and I try to make a big deal about it, and then I showcase it everywhere and tell them, we're going to put you all over the world, and they get excited. And I also am teaching life skill classes to special needs as well as survivors of domestic violence and survivors of abuse. I offer legal documentation preparation for many, many documents at a fraction of what you would pay at law firms. I did graduate top of my class with a paralegal degree. So I also am teaching what's called Writer Wednesday. I'm a published author of Who Kicked First. It's a memoir of what I endured by my ex. And I teach Writer Wednesday, and we're about to start summer camp where every day is a different theme. So we get to work with I personally work with the kids, and we do fun different techniques, and everybody has a voice, and I want to hear everybody's story, and I want to hear everybody's journey, and we make a really big deal about it, and we have talent shows and story time, and we just live life and enjoy it because we know what it's like to be on the edge of not having it. And so between that, and I advocate for special needs, advocating for domestic violence, helping the survivors realize what they can do, how they can bring back that inner life that is not flickered out. It's still there. I work with the families as well. I do a lot of speaking to women, not so much since COVID, a lot of it's virtual, but I speak to the families about the fact that they need the support, not the ridicule. They need to have even someone in the room holding their hand. Just let us know we're not alone, because it's such a big difference in our journey. And just to be able to help everybody see the beauty from within.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm honored to hear all of the things that you've done, and I can't wait to get into your story. This is how I look at it, Victoria. People think I'm I'm a little different. Okay. I believe that when you and your mom had you in the hospital, they kissed you and they brought you in and they take you home now. And they put you in what I consider the lab. And in this lab, they put you into this wonderful place that is a cage that will hold you there for several years or several months, actually. I believe the baby it is so inside the human spirit about freedom that that little child starts trying to escape from the minute it could stand up and start to do things. So I want you to talk to me about your home. How was your lab, as I said? How was the experiment? And how did it begin to formulate your thought and your expression of who you are?
Well, Ken, to be honest with you, I had the world's greatest grandparents. They were phenomenal individuals, very old school. You're talking about just a gentleman who opened the door for his wife, pulled out the chair for his wife, ordered for his wife. I grew up just wanting to marry that man, but he's like, no, that you can't do that. But I had my biological parents, of course. It was a very undiagnosed, in my opinion, narcissistic environment. It was very toxic in so many ways. There are 3 siblings, none of which have a relationship with one another. There is the golden child, there's the scapegoat, and then you have the narcissistic parents. I've never had a relationship with my mom, and I hate that. I pray for them every single night. I was blessed to have my grandparents, which were everything to me, and my biggest fear was making them unhappy or disappointing them in any way. So I did everything that I could to thrive in every way. And as I got older and older, I really saw the true colors of people that are supposed to be helping me guide me through life. And that's when I realized that I would never be that parent. I wouldn't be the parent who I didn't have. I thrived for my grandparents, but I starved to hear my own biological mother tell me that she loved me, and I didn't get it. She would tell me she didn't like me. I never did anything good enough. I mean, ever. I've written a book, but I didn't do it for her to be proud of me. But her answer was her son, who is her golden child by every imaginative word possible, he wrote a paper. Well, he wrote a paper that's so much harder than writing a book. It's not a contest, but I mean, I always wanted to hear, I'm proud of you. And I didn't get that. I grew up thinking I was a daddy's girl. But that's not really what it was. I was, used in the aspect that for the longest time, Ken, he would say, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. And then he would bring another woman in the picture. And I told him, I said, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I know that your wife makes you unhappy, but if that's what you want, then leave and get divorced, do it the right way. And I went and asked my grandmother once, why is my dad, your son, so different than you? And she said, well, it's the marriage and the situation. And I couldn't comprehend. I was too young to understand what that meant. And when I learned that, I said, but he's so different. And she goes, well, so are you. You do not fit in that family. And anyone who really knows me will say, you've got to have been adopted. There's no way you're connected to this family. But I never wished harm on them. When I heard that my dad had COVID, immediately I reached out and said, can I bring you anything? Do you need anything? Can I bring you food and drop it off at the door? And it was, it's heart-wrenching. I have no contact with them. I did live with them after I got out of my abusive marriage, and it was horrible. My relationship with my mother just got worse and worse, and long story short, I had to clear my conscience after I moved out, and I provided her with so much proof to show her what all of the manipulation I was dealing with my father. And that I took my daughter on a weekend trip before one of her surgeries, and there was another woman that was there, and he was feeding her, and he was texting her all the time, and he told me if I ever told her, he would make my mom believe that I set them up. He was very different behind closed doors than he was in the public eye. Like, it was two different people, and he would try to make me the bad one and blame me. And they had a ton of money. The inheritance was held over my head. They disowned my daughter, who's special needs. I mean, just wants nothing to do with her either. And I don't care. It's not about money. We are not here on this planet for money. I'd rather have all the love in the world than all the money, because that's not what makes you happy in life. I mean, it makes it a little easier to live. I just want to be able to have a roof over my head and be able to take care of my family. But I don't need the nice cars. I don't need the 10,000 square foot house. I don't need any of that. And God has supplied everything that I need and kept me on my journey and kept me here.
Yeah, that is awesome. So how did that household, that relationship, how did it form you, the young woman? How did it create you? And what were your, how did you look at life, the relationship with people from that lens? How was that to you? How did it affect you?
I've had the same group of friends, Kim, forever. My mom never had a friend her entire life. She never had anyone to hang out with. She was very much an introvert. She did everything with her son. They went on cruises together. They stayed in the same room together. She would go at midnight to unclog his toilet. It was a very toxic, unhealthy relationship. And I literally just held on to the beliefs of my grandparents because they were so giving. Like my grandmother, even when she was in her late 70s, was doing things daily for the homeless. And I just was so in awe of the person, the mother, the wife, the human being that she was. The same with my grandfather. I mean, they stood beside each other when they went through cancer and heart attacks and whatever the case is, they were right there for each other. And it was so beautiful that, even when my dad said to me, they fight. I've never seen them fight. Never once did I ever see them fight. But I've also never seen my parents show any affection. I never saw, I love you, or I never saw them being, an infectious group of people. And my grandparents were the opposite. And that's what I longed for. So what I did was I took everything that I saw from my grandparents and instilled that into my footprint. And everything that my parents had, I instilled in what I would not accept for myself because I was owed better. I deserved better. And so that was another reason why there was such a distance with us, because I just would laugh at some of the things that they did. And I was, I've always, like I said, I've prayed for them every night. I wish them the best. But how do you disown your grandchild? How do you just have, my parents each individual parent has no relationship with both parents and the child. Like, my dad doesn't have a relationship with any of the siblings. I have so many text messages where he would make fun of both of his other siblings. And it was, you don't do that. Like, it's toxic. It really is. And then it becomes to the fact where you believe how he feels about his wife is how you should feel about your mother.
Yeah, it sounds like as if they are still trying to work out a few things within themselves as to who they are and to navigate through their space as well.
Well, they're happy in their misery. They're very happy in their misery, and they're not going to change as long as the bank account stays fat.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of people are that way. That's why I tell people going on a journey, personal development, and becoming a better student, a student of who you are, is a rewarding journey. But not many people want to go on the journey because it causes them to look deep within themselves, to investigate who they are by the questions that we ask each other and ask ourselves. But I know a lot of people, 80s and 90s, when I worked in skilled nursing facility, that didn't have a clue, never went on that journey. So yeah, a lot of people, this type of living is not for a lot, but we are trying to reach those who think they're on by themselves and they're alone and there's no one there, but there is someone. Talk to me as to how, when did you leave your parents' home and began to navigate on your own?
My own journey. I was 17.
17
Yes.
When you left?
Yes.
And once you left, where were you heading and why?
I couldn't deal with the toxicity anymore. I couldn't do it. And so I went on my own, got my own apartment. I was struggling because I was a 17-year-old. I had a jalopy kind of car, didn't matter, but I was working. It was my little apartment. I was thrilled. And then I went on to go into the corporate world. I was very excited about that. I had great friends, but I went 10 years with no contact to them. And it was really hard, but I still, like I said, I still thought about them. I still prayed for them. But you can only do so much. You can't help somebody who doesn't want to see it. So I was really doing great in my corporate world, in my personal life. The only thing that I was missing was I wanted to be a wife and a mom.
That's it. And because I know that that desire and trust. Because when I became a parent, one of my goal was I had made a commitment to myself. My dad and my mom, and all of, because of the culture was also, they was not very expressive as to telling us they love us and so forth. And my siblings, we talk about that. But in my case, I got an opportunity. I kept my mom and dad, especially my dad, they pursued me, and we kind of, because I broke off the relationship. But when I realized that my dad kept coming to me, and I eventually said okay, and I went and sit down with him because I got hurt from the relationship. But one of the things I had said was I want to make sure that my relationship with my children was going to, I wanted to provide the things that I did not have within my relationship with my father and my mom. And I actually had to fight to make those things happen. I had to overcome certain things that was preventing me from having that relationship with my children, learning to deal with anger and stuff like that because of abuse when I was a young man coming from the hand of my grandfather. Um, so those things I had to learn how to overcome this anger, man, and it was very deadly, and it had governed my life. So, what type of emotional experience did you come out of as you left? I know you were using your grandparents as your anchor. What type of emotional expression you felt that you um, expressed, but were lacking, but were what we consider in personal growth things we had to deal with? What were some of those emotional things we had to deal with?
I lost my grandfather at 15, and I lost my grandmother when I was in my early 20s. And I kind of put myself on that tunnel vision of just growth in my professional life. I had great friends. I went through just really bad relationships with men because
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find anyone in the caliber of my grandfather. And I just, like my dad would say, did you write your number on the bus wall, in the bathroom on the bus wall? Because this is the kind of man you
Wow.
bring home. Nothing supportive at all. I became numb in that
Mm-hmm.
aspect personally because I felt like I didn't have anyone. There was so many holidays that I spent by myself in my apartment, wherever that was, or working, that it was like, oh, it's a day on the calendar, because I was always very celebratory on those things. But when you lost it, you don't have that connection. My best friends would say, hey, come to our family's house. I couldn't do it because I felt so out of
Mm-hmm.
place. Um,
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I felt just not right. And so I would sit by myself. I'd go visit my grandparents at the cemetery. And it was just like, I really just focused more on the friends and my career. I just didn't think about anything else because I was starting dating guys that were just not what I wanted, not the relationships that I wanted. Just not, a lot of them were very toxic in their own way, not abusive yet at this point, but just not willing to be the relationship of what I wanted in life, not my life partner.
Yeah. And how old were you when you met your ex-husband, when you embarked on that relationship? And how did that come about?
Well, the very long story short is I finally met the love of my life, my soulmate. I remember my grandparents saying, when you meet him, you'll know. And I said, this is nuts. I'm never going to know. And I met my ex, not my abuser, and we dated for 4 years. I knew without a shadow of a doubt this was going to be my soulmate, my life partner. Never questioned it for a minute, and I felt full in my life. Everything was complete. We ended up not working out. It was the timing. The timing was wrong. And in that 4 years, Ken, we never had a single fight, which was beautiful. And it was the wrong time. And there were issues that transpired, but it just, my heart knew it belonged to him. And the first time ever in my life I rebounded, and it was with my ex-husband. And I met this guy, and as you and I said before we started recording, he was so charismatic. He wasn't something I would be attracted to physically, but I was someone, and I still am, and that person that I want someone who's good on the inside, because that showed out on the outside. He was so charismatic. He was a genius in his own way in regards to how he could lure you in. So very charming during the courting period, because I worked and I traveled with my job. We didn't get to see each other consistently like you might do when you start dating a little more seriously.
Yeah.
So he would be just that charming guy that you were like, why aren't there more of you out there? Why are you single? Like, what is going on? What's not right here? And immediately I start, looking at all the things and pinpointing them and dissecting them and what's going on. And I started comparing them to, my dad and other people I've been with. And I always I started comparing him to the love of my life. And I was like, that's not the thing. But he knew I wanted a family, and he went so big on the fact that he wanted kids, and that, he was active duty military, and that he'd never been able to find his one, and he wanted to settle down. He wanted to have a family. His family was so big into fostering, and that's all he ever grew up with, was foster brothers and sisters. And I was like, are you kidding? This is fantastic. He's like, I just want to be able to have a family. And the next thing I know, he's got roller skates on me, hypothetically, and he's racing me down the express lane to get very serious. And I said, hey, wait, it's going way too fast. And he would, as soon as I started to pull back, he would say, we've been without each other our whole lives. Haven't we been alone long enough? Haven't we been without happiness long enough? And then he got in my head, and it was, he's right, and I had my own place, and he had his own place. And I tried to be really good, Ken, about the whole thing. I didn't even live with him until after we were married. And he was just like, we need to get engaged, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. And I started to see little things, and I like I said, I dissected them. And, I a couple of times I was like, I don't think this is right. And then he would come up with some story that when he was deployed, or this happened or that happened, and it would just pull my heartstrings. It would break my heart. And I'm like, I'm not shallow. Why am I feeling like he doesn't deserve a chance because I'm scared? And that's what he did. He was brilliant at this point. And I would just I would apologize because I felt bad questioning him. And he ran with it. He absolutely ran with it. And next thing you know, we are on our wedding day. And I'm just like, I felt like the Beetlejuice with the head going round and round. Yeah. And I literally sat on his bathroom floor, to tell you how old I am, with a Palm Pilot, looking at airfare to go home before the wedding. And I was like, this is not right. This is not right. I know he's not it. I know he's not it. And when I tell this, some people look at me like, what? But I started praying and talking about it and thinking about it, and something really powerful came over me and said, something amazing is going to come out of this. And I just felt a sense of calm. And this was it took me about an hour with this, and I got up and I went and got married, and it was just nothing spectacular. And then we came back, and I got pregnant like very quickly after, which was kind of ironic. And as soon as we realized I was pregnant, that's when the abuse started.
Really? I mean, right after that, because he was saying about expressing the need of family, and as soon as you began to initiate the family, that's when he began to get violent with you?
Yes.
Wow. How old were you then at that time?
30.
30? Wow. It is, I believe, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's this inner being that we are, and I believe it's who we are. And the body because that energy is housed in this body, that this body, the union between that, the Bible tells us you have the soul and the spirit and the body, and all of these things have languages. We have ways by which we communicate with people and stuff like that. And people have learned how to manipulate the five senses, and they're brilliant. I mean, you're testifying of the genius of that person, and every person that you think of, leaders that have exhibit some of that type of behavior. These men and women are brilliant.
Yes.
In manipulating the senses, and they will cause you to cry and wail, and all of stuff happens to you, and you don't even know what's happening, but you're just crying, going with it. But here you are married. Soon as you find out you're pregnant, the abuse starts.
Yes, sir.
And I want you to talk to me about how did that impact you, because you got married, you didn't want to marry this thing, but you wanted this family. And here, I'm sure there's a part of you who's excited about that. And then this stuff comes. How did you handle that?
I was elated when I got pregnant. It was just the greatest gift ever in life. I knew, I was so excited, and it wasn't long after that when I told him that I was pregnant that he started showing his true colors. And when I say that, I mean like that behind closed doors person, that charismatic, charming in the courtship person is now filed somewhere under lock and key, and that's not who I have anymore. And now it was, well, why did he do this and why did he do that? And I was standing in the den, and he said, "Are the clothes done, or did you start the?" It was one of the two. And next thing I know is I have a phone, his cell phone, thrown across and hit me in the face, and I was like, "That did not just happen. That didn't just happen." Like, I was in complete denial. That did not just happen. And he came up and he hit me, and I was dumbfounded. I was like, I am, and I know so many people take this mentality. I was like, I'm not going to be that bad. It's not going to happen. And he knew that I had a very strong background. I have done martial arts my entire life, and he knew this, and he immediately got in my face, and I was like, I know that didn't happen. And so then I was like, it's not going to happen again. And I told him, it's not going to happen again. Like, this stops. And it just started happening, and I got to that point in the mentality of, well, maybe this is my fault. What did I do wrong? Like, how did I make him change so different? Because he was so good at what he does, and this just kept going and going. And I own up to what I've done, Ken, and I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. I made a deal with the devil. I told him that as long as he did not hit my stomach, I wouldn't fight him back. Because the one thing you learn in your training, and I really believe my martial art training and my faith is what saved me, more of my faith, but it was one thing that you learn is it's always self-defense. You do not throw that first punch, and you de-escalate the situation and get away. Well, when I tried to get away, he shot and killed my puppy to show me what he would do if I left.
What?
And I knew that this was not going to be as simple as packing and walking out the door. And he threatened that he was going to keep the baby, that he would never let me see this child. And I knew this was a fight or flight situation. And so I made that agreement with him, because he stabbed me over a dozen times during this course of time. And literally, if dinner wasn't on the table at a certain time, I would get my nose broken. I'd get a black eye. I would get my jaw dislocated. I'd get my shoulder dislocated. And I have to say, one hit, one slap, one kick, one punch is one too many. I don't care if it's 1, 2, whatever the point is. You never put your hands on somebody when it's not warranted, male or female. And there's men out there that are abused. So I started going to his command, and also I know not every soldier in every platoon in command in the military is bad. I know that not every branch is bad. I know it. I just got like the worst. We were in a small military town, and I did not realize how much, and the more I've been talking about it, the more I've learned that they cover up for each other. It is not something that is just thought about and what? No, we're going to take care of this right now. It's not like that. They cover up for each other. The military does. But like I said, I know not all military is bad. I went to his command and said, I'm very light skinned. Obviously something's going on. They said, well, we're going to make him grab real estate, which is a military phrase. That never happened. I kept saying, he's going to kill me. It's going to get to that point where he's going to kill me. And they turned a blind eye. This went on and on. I ended up basically almost every day he beat me and abused me in some way. He was following me to my exit at work. He would make me call from my office because I had caller ID. He would do spot checks just to show up to make sure I was where I was supposed to be. He had taken my phone and given me one where he watched any and everything that I did. It became like I was literally, the best way to explain it, I was asthmatic and a smoky chamber of hell. If that is.
Let me ask you a question. As far as some of the damages that you talked about, did you go to the hospital for care, or did you go to an outside hospital, or did you go to the base for care?
Both. My OB was fantastic, and she documented everything. And the difference, Ken, and he said, she said in my story, is that everything that happened is provable. We have evidence of every single thing, not questionable, because I kept trying to show everybody this is still happening. And even his platoon was like, why do you have so much proof? And they're like, it's honestly starting to look a little suspicious. And I said, because I'm trying to show you that it's still happening and you're turning a blind eye. And if you don't do something about it, I want a paper trail as to this man killed me so he can't get my kid. Because that's what's happening. And I even went to the advocacy center for the military, and I dealt with a wonderful lady. She gave me her business card. And like I said, it was a very small base. I ended up numerous times. He had a buddy who worked in the hospital. And so a lot of the times he would take me onto the military hospital base. The base of the military hospital, sorry. And they would stitch me up. I had to get over 300 stitches just in one area alone. He stabbed me and then took the knife and drugged me from my wrist all the way up my arm, and the scars are there. You can't deny it. And so they would do it, and they did it off the record. And I would say, don't I need to fill out paperwork? Does something have to be filled out? No. We take care of each other. This is what we do. He has my back, I have his. We need to set your jaw. We need to set your nose. We need to set your shoulder. We need to do this. And I never took a pain med because I was worried that it would mess up my child. And so the doctors would say, well, why don't you want to take anything? I didn't get anything when he did it. I don't want anything. Now, I do not want to affect my child. I want just fix it. And so this went on and on until I had gone back again and again asking for help. It was the same person. It was the same captain. And I ended up in the ICU and told I had a 2% chance of surviving the night.
And all of this was when you were pregnant?
Yes. Every bit of it happened when I was pregnant.
Wow. Did you ever step out and went into the regular stuff like the police station or any of that? Because I know it's a small town, you'd mentioned. Did you try to go to that venue to try a different route?
I did at the end. Yes.
Okay.
I did.
And they were able to because that is wow. Okay. So here you are going through hell on earth, basically. You are pregnant, and tell me about the birth of your baby girl and How did you handle that, bringing her into that situation? How did it go?
Now you're going to start. I tried really good not to cry at this point, Ken. You're going to get me. I was in ICU for a long time. I was unrecognizable. I had the best nursing staff. One lady in particular was a older lady with an amazing spirit. She stayed in there with me. I was in labor for several days, and they couldn't stop it. I had a blood clot. They couldn't put in a filter because I was pregnant, because they go through the groin to put in a filter. So I was getting heparin and Lobenox injections alternately, because they can't do Coumadin when you're pregnant, because he kicked me across the room. And then he took my head and started slamming it into the bricks where the fireplace was. And I kept coming in and out of consciousness. And I was bleeding in places that you shouldn't bleed ever. And so they told me, you can't move. If this clot splits, you get a pulmonary embolism, it can kill you and the baby. And so eventually, they told me I had to have an emergency C-section. And before I went back, because they said it would be a few hours, because they were bringing in a high-risk specialist, his command came in. And like I told you, and I'm not going to lie, I yelled, I screamed, I pitched a fit, because I told them I held them just as much at fault as I did my husband, because I told them this was going to happen. I tried to throw them out, and I had the nurses come in, and then they called security and told them they had to leave. And their mentality was, well, listen to her. She's screaming. She's yelling at us. She doesn't want us here. Well, what am I supposed to do? Ask them for tea and cookies? I mean, I've been coming to them so many times, begging them to help me. And here I am now, wondering if I'm even going to ever meet my daughter. And they come in and they're just like, hey, sorry you're in here. I mean, of course I'm going to pitch a fit, and I got a lot of ridicule for yelling at them. Well, I'm not a soldier. And I asked them, I said, isn't your responsibility to protect United States citizens? Well, how come you can't do it on your own soil? Why are you not helping? You're not helping me. He's going to kill me. I keep telling you this. And here I am again, in ICU. Here I am again, trying not to die. And y'all won't do anything. You're just, like, I don't matter. Like, my child doesn't matter. What if it was your mom or your sister or your child? Put yourself in that situation. Nothing. So they end up doing the emergency C-section. On the way in, I told my doctor, who is a civilian doctor who is amazing, that if for some reason something was going on with her, then I didn't give them permission anymore to treat me, and they were going to let me die and leave me with her if something happened with her, because she was so little, and we knew that going in, that she was really small. And my OB, who was amazing and had made sworn affidavits, she had made notes in the medical records and photographs, and every photograph coincided with the medical record, with the injury. Everything was documented, and she cried. She was so sweet and a wonderful physician, a wonderful lady. And I told her, I was like, let the clot go, because I can't be here without my kid. And little did I know that her and I both coded. They put me under general, and we both coded, and they life flighted her to a children's hospital. So I didn't get to hold her. I didn't get to breastfeed her. I didn't get to swaddle her or anything. She was life flighted to a children's hospital. And when I heard that, it was, I'm out of here. I gotta go. I gotta be with my kids. I'm going, against medical advice. I'm AMA. Let's go. And my doctor, she sat down, took my hand, and said, you will die before you hit the interstate, because your clot, your heart rate, you went into heart failure. You cannot go. And I said, I have to get to my kid. And when this is going on, I hear the helicopter, and she's on that helicopter, and I'm here, and I can't get to her. And it is the most unexplainable feeling that I'm helpless, and I can't help my kid. I can't help myself. So I said, what have I got to do? And she said, you're probably going to be here another 2 to 4 weeks. And I said, no, I'm not. I promise you I'm not. And she said, you haven't even stood up in 2 weeks. You haven't moved in 2 weeks. And I said, well, then let's go. And she said, tomorrow we'll get you to go to the chair. And so I stood up, and I started to move and I fell. And I had the compression stockings on and the devices, they unplugged them. And I got to the door and I thought, I'm never going to get out of here. That's not going to happen. My legs felt like they were 600 pounds apiece. They were so heavy. And I got to the door and she's like, you're going to have to walk the whole floor before we consider that you're strong enough to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I immediately was like, let's go. And she said, no, you need to sit down. I said, I'm not going to sit down. Get out of my way. He was never there. He wasn't there during that time. He would just show up long enough to make an appearance, and then he was gone. And so I immediately started walking, and every step I took, I cried. It hurt so bad. And I just kept thinking, and all I could hear in my head was that helicopter taking off with my daughter. And I wasn't with her. And she shouldn't be in there. She should be with me. She should never have been in that incubator as I watched them run down the halls of the incubator. And I wasn't there. I wasn't with her. And so when I finally got out of the hospital, I was in a wheelchair, so I get my leg elevated, and I was put on Coumadin and all this other. And I said, if it's not life-threatening on me, we are not fixing it right now. I have to be with my kid. So I went and stood with her for months in the NICU. That's where I was. That's it. That's where I'm going to be. And that's where I remained. And I watched her code every single day. So many times I became so, really close with the chaplain at the kids' hospital. She was coding. She was having seizures. She had 3 surgeries before she was even a week old. She fit in my hand. And I wasn't going to leave. And they kept saying, we don't know how long she has. She's not going to make it. Oh, she's going to make it. She's going to make it. And I was like, don't ever tell me that again. And she's here. She's amazing.
Wow. How long? You were there for a month and then you're home.
No, I was there 3 months.
3 months. You were there for 3 months. And now you're home. How did you make it?
You have a daughter?
I have a granddaughter. I have 4 boys.
Okay. Well, you have a granddaughter, since I can tell her for you.
They own me. I have about 4 of them, and they own me. Papa this and Papa that, and I'm done.
It's the best. I wasn't prepared to go home yet. I didn't think that we were going to be going home yet. She kept coding, and we ended up having to put a tracheostomy in. So my daughter went into a meditative coma, and she was breathing out of a tube in her neck. And so she was inaudible. And after another 6 weeks, they said, she's ready to go home. This kid is such a fighter. Every time we do a surgery and we didn't think she was going to make it, she proved us wrong. And, a lot of times, if a child is too fragile to go down to the OR, they will do this, whatever needs to be done in the NICU. And you talk about the most gifted, biggest hearted humans on the planet are those people in there, and working with these beautiful, beautiful babies. And so I wasn't prepared to go. I wasn't ready. I wanted to be away from him before we went home from the NICU, and that didn't happen. And I wanted to be physically strong enough to take care of her and not have a concern, because I would be by myself. And we went home, and we went to the house because I wasn't home, and she had an apnea belt on, pulse ox probe on, and I had to clean. She has a feeding tube because she can't eat by mouth, and so I had to clean the bag. It was a huge open room, and I checked her, and I kept all the equipment alarmed much higher than you're required to, so I would have plenty of time if something happened. If she started to deset, or she started to have an occlusion in her trach. And I went just 10 feet to go wash out some of her equipment to get it ready for the next feeding. And just like I'm talking to you without emotion, I hear, she's blue. And I drop everything. I go over, and she looks lifeless, just sitting there. And I immediately grab the phone without even thinking. I call 911, and I hear this noise, and I look, and I have a gun to my head. And I'm on the phone, and I know if I hang up that phone, I'm dead. And
wow.
I look, and I said, why are you standing over me? Why aren't you helping me? And this was before the whole pepperoni pizza ordering, calling 911 thing. And I'm trying so hard to get the operator to hear what I'm saying. And I understand how she misconstrued it, because I'm like, my infant isn't breathing. And she's like, let's do CPR. I'm like, you don't do CPR the same way you do it for a tracheostomy child. And I'm immediately trying to do CPR. And I'm holding the phone like this, and he's standing over me with the gun in my head. And I'm like, why are you just standing there? I was like, you need to do something, move, don't just stand there, help me. And I'm trying to get somebody to pick up on what I'm doing. And I said, I need an ambulance, and I need police. I need the fire department. I need the police. That's what I kept trying to reiterate. And I said, can you go unlock the door so you can let them in? And he won't move. And I said, you're not doing anything. This is our child. She's not breathing. Can you open the door? I mean, nothing. And he's just standing there with his gun to my head. And I look over Ken, and all of her equipment's off. All of her equipment is off. And you have to remember, because he's broken my jaw so badly, my hearing is bad. I have hearing aids now, but I didn't have them then. And so I didn't hear the equipment go off. And the equipment is off. She's blue. I have a gun in my head. I'm on the phone with 911. I'm begging and pleading for the police and the ambulance to arrive. As soon as he starts to hear the sirens, he takes the gun and throws it under the couch and picks up and starts playing his video game again. And I'm still working on her. And they come in, and I didn't even just tunnel vision again. They grabbed her. I grabbed her emergency bag, which was by the door, and we left and went to the hospital. He showed up hours later, and he told me that he did this because I was spending too much time focused on the baby and not him, and that wasn't okay with him.
Whoa.
He told me he put his finger over her trach until she stopped breathing.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you're one of the strongest people I've ever known in my entire life. I was reading your stuff, and the amount of times that you went into surgery, the amount of times that you were injured, and the things that took place and happened to you. And I was saying to you, when I saw that you reached out to me, I was like, how in the world is this woman still alive? I have to talk to her. So that your story is such a powerful one. It's, I know there's so many women out there today that are in similar situation, not as 3D as yours, man. Yours is 3D right in, with the glasses on and everything, man. I mean, just kept coming. The guy is an interesting character. But I just wanted them to know that you made it, and you're here. Your daughter is here. You're here, and that when people listen to this story, it is my hope, Victoria, that they would get in touch with you, and so that they can grab from your strength, your wisdom, and your tenacity that you have expressed and showed to us here. So I don't even know. People always say to me when I do these interviews, your questions are so difficult to answer, and I don't even know how to ask them. you turn the table on me. I'm like that. But I wanted to just take a break and and see your strength and celebrate your strength, that in all of this chaos, in the hellish relationship that you are in, how did you, I know it's recollect, go back, I know you're going from one situation to another, but after it broke for for a short while, I'm sure, how did you maintain your sanity within that space? And I'm sure as a mother, your focus shifted from corporate to your daughter, and that's how you maintain it. But what was holding you together?
My faith, absolutely. There were times that I didn't want to make it through the night because I was beaten so badly, and I would lay on the floor and I would feel like, just let me go, just take it away so I don't do this anymore. And I would feel these little kicks, and it was like, I'm here, Mom, can't do that, I'm here too. And I thought, how selfish am I? And I said, she is in there, it's my job to protect her. And so that's what I did. And I got up and said, I'm going to do this for her. And so my protector was my daughter, and more importantly, my faith. Her name is Faith. And I told her that I would protect her with my life. And I meant that. And to go through everything we were going through, I looked at her and thought, she's fighting so hard for me. And she's overcoming everything. And God is carrying her. He has wrapped her right now. He has literally wrapped her in his arms, and he hasn't let her go. And he has gotten me through things that the doctor said I would never come through. And because of that, that's what kept me sane, and that's what kept me going.
So, how long were you in the marriage, and how did it end?
Well, that's very simple. After that, I left. It was after that I was done. And I took on everything and everyone. I was that mama, protective, lion, tigress person. I went after the parental rights, got a guardian that lied him. He tried to fake a DNA test. The only reason they caught him is he had somebody else try to say that they were him, and he had to show an ID. So that didn't work out for him. And I went through the courts, got my protective order, restraining order, temporary order, asked for military protective order. I went through the whole thing, and I fought every single step of the way. The rights have been terminated. She is 1,000% mine. She's always been mine. She's never his. And we got divorced, and it was just, I was not going to stop. I wanted him to see that I'm fighting back, and that's what I did. And I learned so much about him I had no idea about while I was going through this.
So how was he at any point in all of this? Was he held accountable by anyone?
When the military didn't do what they were supposed to do, Ken, I went to the civilian sector, and they went after him for 9 felonies. I mean, had him dead to rights. And we went to court. The detective went with me. She was a fabulous lady. I was sitting in the courtroom, and the judge asked who took out the warrants. And because of, I didn't know military law, most people don't know military law. Supposedly, I do know an active duty soldier doesn't go by the same governed laws as a civilian. And because the military police didn't do an investigation, CID didn't investigate, and then open a joint investigation with the civilian sector, I'm trying to remember exactly how they worded it, the warrants being drawn by myself and the detective were technicality and not done the appropriate way through military law or JAG or whatever it was, and he was free and clear.
Wow. That is, you have such an interesting story. I wanted to talk to people. I know it was your religious faith, your faith, that held you together through all of this and moving through your life. How did you come about to say, okay, let me put this paper to pen and create the book?
while sitting there, my daughter was in a medically induced coma. You can't stimulate her. And I just sat with her. I sang with her. I prayed with her. I read to her. I just wanted her to keep hearing my voice. And I just sat there and I felt like I watched the world go by through the window. Cars go by, light becomes dark. You know, you just see everything change and your situation remains the same. And I had no one. I had no one to talk to, no one to cry with, no one to help me. So I had my laptop there and I just started venting and I started writing and writing. And it wasn't ever meant to be looked. It was, I was being interrogated and it was, who saw him break your nose? Who watches their surroundings when they're getting beaten? I don't. And so I just started writing and I had this most amazing, gifted respiratory therapist because you have to be trained inside and out on all the equipment and the situation, like the trach, and if it becomes occluded, you have to do emergent trach change, and she had a feeding tube, and she had epilepsy, and you have to learn all this before they even let you go home. You're signed off, you can sign off on and certified. So I am just venting on this, and she looked at me one day and she said, you know, you would save somebody's life if you would write that and print it. And I said, well, you crazy? And I said, if you met him, you met him. You know, there's no way I'm putting this out. And 10 years after, I put it out.
Wow. What an amazing story. Victoria, I always tell people that, and I encourage them to purchase your book because I always tell them that when you're writing, that you pour all of your energy, your everything that you have in that in those pages. And that when someone purchases your book, it is to have a one-on-one with the author, that you're having private conversation with that author, and based upon that kind of conversation, those private conversation, you will have revelations about who you are, your situations, so that you are able to better make a decision to encourage you to move forward. And so, for all those who are listening, I encourage you to get Victoria's book. I have to, Victoria, we've been talking for about 57 minutes. I've got to bring you back. We haven't even touched on some of the things that I usually inquire about those questions that people told me I keep asking them, you know. But your story is so compelling that I believe that we need to have more, because you have your frame, your house, your physical house has been damaged greatly as a result of this relationship. And I want to bring you back so we can go into that, but also to go into the aspect with your daughter, because that also took you into another journey. And I would like to bring you back so we can do maybe a second part to this thing.
I would love to.
We shall do that, I think. And let's do that, I think, because it is such a rich story. As I mentioned, we are at 58 minutes and change right now. And so we need to come back because we're now getting started. So,
and there's a very, very happy ending
here. Yeah. So for this first episode, I want to thank Victoria. Thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, and we will do a second one. So thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you for your time and your listeners for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.